coming down towards turn number 1. It's Cormac Buchanan trying to come through on O'Shea. Adrian Fernandez is just honing into view. Very, very tricky turn 1, and again Cormac Buchanan, and he's waving his arm at Eddie O'Shea there. Not sure that was too much to do with Eddie. There's only one rider in that situation who can see where the other one is, and Eddie O'Shea hadn't rolled down to it just yet. Back to Pini and Carpe. They just had a misdemeanor down at turn 1. Carpe shadowing Pini. Doesn't really get the move done though. It's very, very half-wheeled, and he gets a bit tight and a shake of the head. I mean, Guido Pini might have blown his own apex, but Alvaro Carpe not too impressed, I don't think. There we go. Have a bit of hot tyre up. Your inside right leg, Guido. That'll get you going in the morning.
Yeah, nice little slow-mo there down at turn 1. A little bit too close for comfort for Prix Practice 1, boys. Yeah, not sure really who was at fault there. Probably more Carpe. He's up the inside trying to make a move and didn't quite get it done. Not too much to worry about. A little bit of contact, rubbing his racing, as they say, as the Moto2 World Championship leader, Mano Gonzalez, watches on from the pit lane.
Might not be able to say that for too much longer. The way it's going in Moto2, what a title race that is. I've got to say, Diego Moreira has done a fantastic job to get back on terms with Manu Gonzalez. Gonzalez may have been playing it safe. He's now got to go for broke, hasn't he? All that's to come, of course. Moto2 coming up at the end of this straight away in about another 20 minutes or so, in the company of Lewis Sotheby and Neil Morrison. Back across the line, Valentin Peroni. Let's talk about Valentin Peroni, because it was his worst finish of the year last time around with Phillip Island in P20. His first finish outside of the points positions. It was his worst qualifying, down in 22nd place. It's his first time at Sepang. He's already going better than his first time at Phillip Island. He really did not find the mojo last time out in Australia.
No, first time finishing outside of the points since the Americas Grand Prix. It's been a fantastic run for the rookie, hasn't it, Peroni, but just never got going in Australia. Just found it super difficult, the conditions at the circuit, and he described the race as a super difficult race for him, and the team as well was just struggling a lot. The feeling in the race was better than the previous 2 days, he said. He was a lot more confident on Sunday, which is good, of course, but if you're not in and around the points come Sunday, it's a bit too late to be feeling good. But he said he just couldn't turn the bike properly in the fast corners. If you can't turn the bike properly in fast corners, you don't want to be riding around Phillip Island, really, because that's what it's all about over in Australia. He said that's something they need to improve, but there's less of that here at the Sepang International Circuit, and as you say, already going way better than he did over at Phillip Island. So just one of those circuits, one of those weekends that it just didn't click for Peroni. That can happen. We've seen it with Carpe this year. Of course, the rookies, you can't, unless you're, they're all fast, unless you're, I don't know, like a Keylez, although he struggled at a couple of events this year as well. You're not going to hit the ground running. You're going to get to weekends where you're going to struggle a little bit more. Unfortunately for Peroni, that struggles meant no points, which was unfortunate for him and the team, but you've got to forget about it. You've got to learn from it, which is exactly what they'll do, and come into the Malaysian Grand Prix with a fresh mindset, and he's already up inside the top 2. So good to see Peroni back up there. That's where we want to see him, because Peroni is a fascinating racer, a great character to have at the front. So yeah, good to see Peroni finding form early doors this weekend.
You need to struggle, you need to make mistakes, that's the only way you learn. That's why I keep doing them. 15 minutes or so to go as we see Brian Uriarte driving to the line. This time it's going to be a very good improvement indeed. It is up into the top 8. He goes 8 places behind David Almanza. David Almanza, we haven't seen anything of him yet, but a solid ride last time out. I think 18th on the grid, had a long lap penalty, came through the P9. I caught up with him in the paddock yesterday, no tyre. So once he got to the lead group, or that podium battle, just no tyre for the number 22. Such a shame for Almanza, because his pace was right there, and trust me, later on when we get going with this one, particularly in practice, I reckon Almanza again is going to be setting some very fast lap times, if that's what recent form is to go off.
Yeah, I mean, time management around Phillip Island is crucial, and of course once you've done a long lap penalty, slipstream is also important. You want to tag yourself back onto the group, and we saw it, didn't we, with Kelso and Moreno. As soon as they got, well, above a second really, 2 seconds at least, then you're away. If you can keep the pace up, which is exactly what they did, the group behind Batin as well, and Almanza was in that group, but yeah, if you used up your tyre trying to catch up, which is the correct thing to do, you've got to try and get yourself in that group in the battle, and once you're there, you can try and stay there. If you can't get there, then of course you've got no chance of being in and around the fight for the podium. But yeah, it was a decent comeback for our Manza. A very disappointing qualifying, of course. To couple that with the long penalty, as again we get some little bit of argy-bargy. That's down at turn 9, the sharp hairpin. Peroni underneath Joel Esteban. Shouts out to Joel Esteban, by the way. Had a fantastic race. P4, his equal best result, beat his teammate Maximo Quiles. Went under the radar a little bit with Rueda in first and Kelso in second, the home hero, but in that battle, Joel Esteban, fantastic stuff for the number 78, replacing Dennis Foggia again this weekend.
I can imagine Quiles took that really well.
Exactly what I was thinking when the 78 dived up the inside of him down at MG.
Down into turn 9 here, and that is about as close as you get. Joel Esteban getting shoved off that racing line by hard charging Valentin Peroni, who sits second at the moment. Joel Esteban, where are you? Down in 12th place at the moment, but still respectably just over a second adrift of Angel Piqueras, who leads the way on a 2:11.837. A couple of seconds away though from the lap record. Conditions obviously not ideal, but they are all out there on slicks at the moment, so still plenty of time left in this one. Peroni has now got ahead of Esteban. Let's see if Esteban repays the favour. I'm sure he won't think twice in doing so, although it is free practice 1. There is no points for getting your elbows out straight away. That brings me on to the next point. Of course, Esteban is still replacing Dennis Foggia, who's not quite well enough to come back yet. Brian Uriarte is still in for David Munoz. Of course, we've seen plenty of Uriarte, but Munoz, his recovery continuing from his broken leg, sustained that incident back in Mandalika. With Adrian Fernandez. Here's Tayo Furusato. Well, tricky time of things last time out. I think Tayo Furusato was looking on for a podium at one point and it didn't quite happen. Came across the line, finished 8th at Phillip Island. Furusato 17th to second though last year. He did give it a good go, less than a tenth of a second away from victory. So he likes Sepang. Is this going to be the weekend where this young Japanese rider can at last take victory? In Moto3, it has been a long time coming. He's been so close, but yet so far, not quite on that top step just yet.
Not quite. Do you feel like it's coming, hopefully, in the next 3 races? That's all that Tayo Furusato might have left in Moto3. We still don't know where the 72 will be heading in 2026. Probably Honda Team Major in Moto2, but they've been very coy about Furusato's future, so that is a to be confirmed. But yeah, Furusato was in that second group, wasn't he, in that podium fight, and yeah, just missed out on a top 5 finish. So he'll be hoping at least a repeat of last year's heroics, finishing on the podium. Got ousted on the final lap, I believe, wasn't it, Tayo Furusato? A fantastic race here last year, and I think Furusato, at the very least, will be wanting a podium in the final 3 races. He always cuts a frustrated figure at the end of races when he's not finished on the podium, does Furusato. A great little character. He was not hanging around in that set, and understandably so.
Absolutely was not full of HAPP winers, that is for certain. And Tayo Furusato, if he's not on the podium, he's going to be Tayo frustrated because he has really had some pace in recent rounds. Barcelona, can you believe it? Barcelona feels like last year. It feels like ages since we've even been at home now, I've got to say. Barcelona, of course, is our local round, so we're all based over there in Catalonia, but yeah, it feels like a long time ago what happened in Barcelona. But of course, we were back to Europe. We are back on European times next time out, and we get to Portugal and Portimao, and then it's the season showdown in Valencia. Round 22, wow, can you believe it? 22 rounds in MotoGP, 22 FP1s as me, mate. How's it been? Don't answer that on air. As we take a look at Angel Figueras, who is in P1 at that 2:11.837. He's got about 10.5 in hand over Valentin Peroni. I've got to say, Peroni's put the struggles of Phillip Island behind him straight away here and coming out the box fighting, looking very good in second place. Then it is Joel Calto, Max Keeler, Jacob Rulson in 5th place as we take a look at Simon Crayfile with Alex Rins, the Monster Energy Yamaha MotoGP rider, and of course the FIM MotoGP steward, Simon Crayfile. What if he's talking about barbecues or something like that down there? Just to complete your top 10, we've got Ralston Danish is in 6th place. It's a KTM first to 6th. 7th for Almanza, who is your top Honda. Uriarte 8th. Rueda, your champion 9th. Luca Lanetta, your only other Honda inside the top 10 in 10th place. I want to talk about Jacob Ralston if I can before we get across at the end of this Moto3 session. Ralston, really unhappy, disappointed, sad. Last time out in Phillip Island, crashing out from the top 5, a real disaster in a point of the year. We spoke about it in Australia. He hasn't got a ride sorted for 2026, and it was looking like, you know, this has got to be the weekend to put in a good result and, you know, at least put yourself in the shop window. He didn't. He fell off very early on. Such a shame for Ralston, but he's up inside the top 5 again this weekend. So at the moment, still carrying on that form from Australia, but an error that really he could have done without.
Yeah, a real shame, and I was super disappointed for Ralston, who said he was understandably heartbroken after today's race, but he also said, this is racing. I think he took it really well. He had a smile on his face throughout the rest of the day, and sometimes that's what you got to do. Ralston had a fantastic opening few laps, qualified down in 13th and quickly made his way up inside P4, then got into 3rd just before he took the front at turn 6. He said he just didn't take into account the amount of wind that was over at turn 6, and it just caught him out slightly, and unfortunately a small mistake. I mean, anywhere can catch you out, but especially in those conditions at Phillip Island, very windy, pretty cold as well, and unfortunately it signalled the end of the race for Ralston, who, yeah, still doesn't have a ride, not much of an update, unfortunately. I desperately hope he is able to find one on the Moto3 grid. I'm one of the ones who feels like he definitely deserves to stick around next year. The only 2 DNS before that he had was through mechanical issues, technical issues, whatever you want to call it. Been in the points in every other race, got his best result over in Indonesia, absolutely deserves a ride next year, but yeah, not much of an update. I think there's a couple of seats available, but unfortunately they're paying rides, and I think Ralston isn't comfortable with doing that, doesn't want to do that. The amount of money that's being asked anyway, a lot of these riders, especially outside of Europe and within Europe as well, spend understandably a lot of money. It's not a cheap hobby, let's say. It's not a cheap career getting into the World Championship, and it's a lot of time and effort for friends and families, a lot of money spent. So fingers crossed Ralston can get sorted, and if he does it in Moto3 next year, let's hope he can find a different avenue, potentially Moto2 European Championship, but I know those rides cost a lot of money as well. So yeah, just keep our fingers crossed. I know we've got a lot of Australian listeners who will be hoping to hear some good things about Ralston in the coming days, and we do as well. There's another one, the Australian Joel Kelso, goes up into the top 3, but yeah, Ralston, yeah, sounds like it's ever trickier to get a ride in Moto3 next year. But we've seen in the past, the likes of the Alonso Lopez's, Fermin Aldeguerra, of course, a MotoGP race winner, went through Moto2 European Championship into Moto2. We've shown Manu Gonzalez is another one. You don't have to necessarily come through Moto3 into Moto2 to get to MotoGP. You can find different avenues. So hopefully, if he doesn't get a Moto3 ride next year, there's a different avenue into Moto2 potentially, and then who knows what can go from there for Ralston.
100%. Motorcycle racing, not a cheap sport, unfortunately, all around, and yeah, in today's climate it is harder and harder each year to get a ride, but Jacob Ralston, we are hoping that, of course, the number 12 is on the grid somewhere in 2026, somewhere in a world championship at least, maybe not in Moto3, but if he can get a ride maybe in the super bike paddock somewhere, then Jacob Ralston is going to be a front runner, I'm sure, but we hope to keep him here for the time being, at least the number 12 who currently sits in 7th place, just ahead of the number 13 of Hakim Danish. still up inside the top 10. Fantastic opening session of the weekend for our home wildcard. Let's have a look at David Almanza. Was set a red first sector, but he's just gone away from him in the middle of the lap. It comes across the line. David Almanza goes up into the top 5, but he's just about a second off at the moment from Angel Piqueras, so there's a little bit of time still to be found for the riders behind Piqueras. Piqueras is down to 2:10s, he's 2:10.979, just got under 2/10 of a second over Jose Antonio Rueda, who has moved up. This is Adrian Fernandez. This should put him top 5 if he can hold that to the line. Indeed it does, puts him 4th, so just Alvaro Carpe, who is behind him on track, split the 2 Leopard Racing Hondas. Less than 3 minutes to go. So far, it's so clean, no misdemeanors out there on track, no yellow flags to be talking about. And for the last 3 minutes or so, let's hope that we get some fast times to get an indication of what's to come later on, of course, because FP1 counts for nothing. It's all on practice in terms of who gets seeded through to Q2 and who has to go through what is a literal jungle here in Malaysia in Q1.
Yeah, it certainly is. An important session always, FP1, but with unpredictable weather throughout the weekend, who knows, this might be the only dry track time we get. Hopefully that isn't the case, but practice this afternoon could very well be wet. Tomorrow morning could very well be wet. We've seen already practice, of course, FP2, I'm talking about, starts a little bit earlier, 25 minutes earlier than, or 20 minutes earlier, I think it's 20 minutes earlier. Anyway, 5 minutes doesn't make a difference.
If you want to do an extra 5 minutes, mate, up to you.
Not next to you, I don't know. So conditions will be a little bit more treacherous tomorrow morning potentially as well. So we've not seen many people pit. I saw Hakim Diniz come into the pits for a brief time, but yeah, important lap times these, important time spent on circuit, and good to see there's been no crashes so far. Hopefully I've not just jinxed that, but conditions do seem, track conditions anyway, do seem like they're pretty favourable, plenty of grip out there. Obviously the track temperature isn't going to be an issue because it's in the mid-20s already, rising towards 30 degrees, so you can see some wet patches around, but not caught anyone out so far, which is good news.
The thing is, it's a long lap here, so we're going to see a little bit less pit lane activity in the practice sessions because you naturally get less laps than you do at a shorter track like a Phillip Island that's, you know, over 30 seconds longer here. So yeah, Sepang, it's a long old track here, about 5.5 kilometres in length. It's probably one of the biggest venues we come to all year. It's an enormous facility here. Of course, they used to have Formula 1, not anymore. MotoGP is its absolute pride and joy these days in the world of motorsport. But Sepang is big, so any trips down pit lane, it's a long old pit lane as well. Any crashes, they do bite you a little bit more here than perhaps at a place such as Valencia, such as Phillip Island, such as Mandalika. Less than 30 seconds or so on the clock as we follow Max Quiles with Hakim Diniz just in behind him. Joel Esteban's behind them. Joel Kelso is behind Esteban, and Kelso looking to go top here in FP1 already on Friday morning. Let's take them all across the line. Ricky Rossi's on a good lap as well here. The number 54 is coming very, very good. Yamanaka's got up inside the top 10. Up into P3 goes Ricky Rossi. P2 for Joel Kelso. You couldn't quite see where Kelso went. Now our time in town just added a moment. Another moment. It's had many throughout the course of 2025. But Ricky Rossi, what a lap that is. I mean, it sounds like his future is very much open and unconfirmed. Much like this rider on screen, Jacob Rulston. But Ricky Rossi up inside the top 3 at the moment. Rulston looking at going P1. He's got Angel Piqueras as a cracking reference as they come through turn 11.
Yeah, good stuff from Rossi, who had a weekend to forget over in Phillip Island. They're all still chasing an Angel Piqueras, but there's some good lap times coming in late on. Ralston just shadowing the session leader at this moment in time, and it's a very good lap from Ralston so far, so he can potentially promote himself from P8 up into the top 3, which would be a good start to the weekend for the Australian. And on that Rookie of the Year watch, Quiles has just struggled slightly in the session, down in 18th. Carpe, just you can see his time on your screen there up inside the top 10, loses a little bit in sector 3, but I do feel like that is definitely one to watch this weekend. It's not a foregone conclusion. I mean, Quiles has the upper hand, no question about it. If Carpe can just chip away at that lead and make it interesting, I mean, it gives us something to talk about as well going into the final couple of rounds. Ralston jumps into the top 2, a good late lap.
Yeah, very good indeed. Marco Morelli, a good late lap as well, up into 10th place, up inside the top 10, so very good late laps coming in. conditions improve and riders get a bit more feeling as this session goes on. Coming to the line, Carpe's going to improve as well. This is going to be a good lap indeed if he can hold it. Ooh, he just dropped a little bit of time in that last sector, but still up inside the top 10 and improved overall, just behind Adrian Fernandez, both on track and in the timing tower. So it is Angel Piqueras who leads away by just half a tenth of a second over Jacob Rulston. Joel Kelso there in third. We have a look at Brian Uriarte just coming through that final corner and now charging to the line. Uriarte, what's he got for us in 12th place at the moment? Is this going to put him top 10? Oh yes it is, puts him up into P7 just ahead of Hakim Danish, who he gets to take the checkered flag, but has just done it now, just gone past our comms position. So Danish takes 8th, and that is about it. Noah Detvila has not taken the checkered flag just yet, neither Stefano Nepper. Stefano Nepper right down the bottom of the timing screens at P27, 2.8 off, and just ahead of him is Matteo Bertelli. So both of the Italians just struggling a little bit. No such worries though for P1, Angel Piqueras. As you can see, he's 1.4 seconds off the lap record, but conditions not ideal for the opening session in Moto3. The rain stayed away. Piqueras comes out to play, P1.
Certainly does. Hasn't had a podium since his Catalan GP victory, and boy does he need a podium, not just for finishing second overall, but just for a little bit of confidence and just to take the edge off what's been a bit of a low-key season in terms of his titles prospects anyway for the 36 before he moves up to Moto2, but that's exactly what he would have wanted. 17th in Australia and then come here to Malaysia, forget that and top the opening session. Long weekend of course, plenty of action still to come, but yeah, the only rider into the 2-minute 10, so top job from Piqueras.
Good stuff from Jacob Wilson as well with that late lap, his 14th lap out there. Not many riders setting more. Valentin Peroni was one of them, Ryusei Yamanaka another. There's some home support for Jacob Wilson. A lot of Australians do make the trip over here. I mean, it's a 9-hour flight from Melbourne, but we do have a lot of Australians coming out to support the Moto3 riders. And of course Jack Miller up in MotoGP, Stella Aegis in Moto2 doing the business last time out, and 2 Australians up inside the top 3. The opening FP1 session in Moto3, well worth the trip and well worth the early get-up on a Friday morning.
Absolutely, yeah, good stuff for Kelso and Rulston to finish inside that top 3. And yeah, we are looking forward to more this afternoon.
It doesn't count for anything though. FP1 is now consigned to history. Practice is where it counts later on. But as you can see, Piqueras ahead of Rulston and Kelso. That's your top 3. Ricardo Rossi with a very late lap to put himself ahead of the newly crowned champion Jose Antonio Rueda. Almanza, Uriarte, Danish, Fernandez and Alvaro Carpe completing your top 10. Some shout-outs further back for Ryusei Yamanaka, who has put Australia's struggles behind him, but is still down there in 13th. Valentin Peroni set more laps than anyone else. He was there in 15th place and up inside the top 2 in the early stages. All the way down to Tayo Purosato in 23rd. He'll be looking for a bit more. Bertelli and Nepper rounding out FP1's order. And that's it. Myself, Kiko Giles and Elliot York are out of here and through and into, take you through Moto2. Lewis Sotheby and Neil Morrison, enjoy!
circuit that Manu Gonzalez is talking big, expecting this to suit him. He's only going to have 2, just 2 points now between the big 2.
Yeah, incredible to think that we've had 19 races for Moto2 action in 2025. Just 2 points separate the top 2 in the championship. What a brilliant spectacle that was in Phillip Island less than 1 week ago. When the top 2 were going at it hammer and tongs pretty much right the way through an epic Moto2 encounter at Phillip Island. They also included this rider here, Aaron Canet, who eventually fell back down the order, complained of just a lack of front end feeling all the way through that Grand Prix, and all that reflected in his late race rhythm, and he fell down the order and failed to really push for the podium in those last couple of laps. But Canet still is unbelievably, despite such a kind of barren run of form, just 35 points back at the championship summit with 3 races to go. Should anything happen to Gonzalez or Moreira this weekend's race, Canet is in a decent place to really punt on that.
Well, to underline why Canet is still in contention, in the last 5 Grand Prix, Aaron Canet has only scored 33 World Championship points, but Manu Gonzalez has only scored 43, so certainly could have put Aaron Canet completely out of the equation by now, missed that opportunity to do so. By contrast, Diogo Moreira, he's notched 72 points in the last 5 Grand Prix, which is why he has roared into title contention and now right on the tail of Manu Gonzalez. 3 Grand Prix to go. The most recent visit on our Grand Prix schedule was a golden day for the boy who represents the green and gold of Australia, Senna Aegis, who we flagged up on Friday. It's very rare that we call it spot on, but I think we did in Phillip Island a week ago. Senna Aegis looked the class of the field in practice on Friday. His long runs certainly indicated that he had the kind of pace and performance to win the Australian Grand Prix. I don't think many, and I don't think even Senna in his wildest dreams would have ever expected to win in quite such a dominant fashion.
Yeah, it was quite remarkable just how easy it looked for Senna up at the front. There was a few close calls early on in the race when he ran in a little bit deep into turn 1. Come on, back to Senna Aegis in a little bit, because Jake Dixon has a new crash helmet design for this weekend. Jake unfortunately lost his granddad a couple of months ago, and his granddad spent quite a bit of time out here in Malaysia during his lifetime, so Jake commemorated him with that special one-off design for this weekend, which looks very trick indeed, and yeah, very nice story behind it as well. So Dixon will be looking to commemorate him with a good result as well, as he showed Phillip Island his place for him. A little bit underwhelmed, I think, by the performance of his Boston chassis. He was being completely honest at the end of that race. Dixon was right in the mix of it for that podium hunt, and at the end of it, this rider here was the head of that fight for second, which at one time had 10 riders.
Yeah, it's not cold this week, David. Although it's rather chilly in our air-conditioned commentary box. The air conditioning cranked up to full blast, so if you hear us losing our voice later on in the weekend, you'll know the reason why. David Alonso certainly had to show how physically he's adapted to Moto2 challenges in 2025. Really did put him to the test. Did say when the Grand Prix came to a close how he was suffering from pain in his arms and his legs, having manoeuvred that